evening, and thank you for joining us for the 2013 ASCSU Presidential Debate. This event is co-organized by ASCSU, the Rocky Mountain Collegian, and CTV. My name is Katie Huss, and I'm the station manager of CTV.
And I'm Greg Meese, the editor-in-chief of the Collegian. We will be moderating tonight's debate. So to open, we'd like the candidates to tell us about themselves, tell us about your platforms, and why students should put their faith in you to be the student body president and vice president of ASCSU. We'll start on the audience's right with Wendy and John.
All right, great. Hello, my name is Wendy Bowling, and I would like to represent you as CSU student body president. I am a junior business major with concentrations in accounting and computer information systems. We have a passion for improving the lives of students. And over the last 3 years of my service to ASCSU, I've been able to see how administrations use their term. I've seen the successes of many administrations, and I've also seen the challenges that they've faced. And I believe that we have focused those successes and challenges and made the right cabinet structure and foundation for our platforms to ensure that they're able to be sustained and developed. Next year is a year of transition for ASCSU. It's a year where we're moving into the MAC gym and we're moving out of the LSC, and it's going to be a challenge for not just ASCSU but for students. And it's our job to ensure that that challenge is met with strong leadership and those who know exactly how they're going to face those challenges and what they're going to do to improve on those challenges. We are dedicated to making your voice our cause. All of our initiatives come from the needs of the students. Things that I have heard and John has heard over the course of our time here at CSU have been serious problems for students. We've taken those needs and we've turned them into our initiative and made them our cause. Our passion is your voice and ensuring that your voice is heard at the state, at the administration, in the community, even at the Capitol. We want to ensure that you have a voice and a strong leadership to move you into the future.
Hi everybody, my name is John Stockley and I'm running to be ASCSU Vice President. My time as a senator here at ASCSU has shown me the great impact that Senate has on students around campus. It codifies the student opinion into a clear voice that can be heard by administrators, faculty, and public officials. My experience, however, has also shown me the need to increase transparency and outreach of Senate and student government as a whole. The student voice and the validity of the student voice is only as strong as the connection of student government to students. Wendy and I are focused on transparency and outreach as it applies to ASCSU as a whole, and I am dedicated to increase transparency and outreach specifically to Senate and SFRB. We have a clear plan to ensure that student voice is always represented at ASCSU and on campus to faculty members, to administration, and to public officials. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Nigel Daniels, and I'm running for ASCSU President in this upcoming election. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself and why we're doing this. So, our platform is Bridging the Gap, and what we really want to focus on is tearing down those barriers within ASCSU. We want to create an atmosphere where students are utilizing your student body government for something that actually is meaningful, that gives resources and benefits students directly. So we want to get representation. We want those voices of students across campus to be heard, especially those voices who haven't been heard in the past. So our platform breaks down under 3 different pillars. We have community, student services, and university enhancement. Within each and every one of these pillars, we have a ton of different initiatives and goals that we hope to accomplish for students in the upcoming year. Every single one of these goals and initiatives that we've set have had a feasibility report ran through them, and we are confident that every single one of them can be accomplished in a timely manner. Andrew and myself have an important commitment to give back to the students here at Colorado State University as we've walked through different paths and different lives here at the university and seen what student involvement can do for an individual and what it can do for the overall experience here at the institution. And I want that experience to be available to all students on campus. And we want to be able to get every student voice heard, especially those that haven't been heard in the past. So we want that representation, and we want those students to be present. Coming up in this upcoming year, we're going to have a ton of different challenges, such as the LSC renovation, tuition, student fees. These are all issues that students are going to face next semester. Andrew and myself have considered all of these, and we want to make this transition as easy and smooth as possible for students. And so we've implemented different things within our platform to ensure that that move is smooth and goes well for everybody, and that we're continuing to use the things that we use every day here at the Lory Student Center. And so with that, I'll pass it over to my running mate, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Nigel. My name is Andrew Olson, and I am currently running for Vice President of the student body. So, something that I believe is of the utmost importance is that the legislative branch, which is the branch that the Vice President oversees, is responsible for representation and advocacy of student voice. And something that we haven't done, I believe, is that use that representation or had that representation that's universal. And some of the focus that in the legislative branch hasn't been in the place that I believe that it needs to be, which is the students. And all the focus needs to be on the student, because really in the end it's all about the student experience and making sure that students get the best experience that they possibly can out of their time at Colorado State University. And also representation as far as the Senate goes. We need to make sure that we have that representation on those issues that affect all students, such as, that health insurance that could potentially be coming through Hartshorn. That affects all students. We need to take stances on that. Concealed carry. That was phenomenal. I love that we take a stance on that because that hits a lot of students hard. I just want to make sure that the focus that we have is on students. It's not on us, because that is selfish. And the one precedent that we don't want to set is that we're selfish because we want to be servant leaders because we want to serve the students that we owe ourselves to and that we just owe to the community. Thank you.
We'll start, Nigel and Andrew, you can take the first question. How do you plan on keeping student morale high during the LSC construction, and how do you plan on making students, especially incoming freshmen, feel like they have a place to call home on campus?
I think you raised a very important point, and the Lory Student Center is going to be a major challenge for many students here on campus. And I just hope students have processed that and realized that, we're going to lose access to this building. And a lot of us, I feel like, believe that this is home. It's a second home. And so it's going to present a challenge to everybody. What we want to do is be able to make that transition smooth. We want to be able to continue letting students utilize the resources and departments that are currently housed in the Lory Student Center. So we want to be able to focus in, make sure they can make appointments and keep that relationship with off-campus life, SLICE, adult learners, and veterans, and maintain that usage so that we are being fully committed to the institution and fully committed to our experience here as CSU Rams. But in addition to that, I think in order to keep the morale high, we have to have a presence. We have to have a presence at orientation. We have to have a presence at Ram Welcome. We need to make sure that we're encouraging students to be excited about what's coming and what's upcoming in this renovation, and be excited to come in with a new drive and a new focus for the Lory Student Center and redefine the way that students look at the Lory Student Center. So, in order to do this, we plan to be present at all of these events, have ASCSU present at all of these events, and encourage involvement. It's going to happen from students being engaged with what's going on campus and students being engaged with the renovation process and understanding how they can come back into the space with a new morale and a new definition for the LSC.
That was great.
Wendy and John?
All right, great. So we understand that next year will be a very challenging time for all students, given that the LSC is the main place where students come and hang out, as well as have their diversity offices. The SLICE office, ASCSU, and the iBox are even going to all be affected by this renovation. And because of that, we've met those needs, and we understand those needs of the students. We're going to open up the RamRide office next to the Transit Center during the LSC renovations to give students a way to communicate back with all of those offices who are relocated into the Mac Gym without having to go all the way over to the MAC gym. We also have a commitment to working with the director of the Lory Student Center to ensure that services that students are seriously passionate about don't get overlooked during the LSC renovations. Not only are we committed to ensuring that the Skeller stays open, but we also want to ensure that the hours are accommodable for students, as well as that the culture of the Skeller remains there and remains as a place for students to be able to hang out and grab a drink with their friends or eat some chili or whatever they would like to do. We also are going to work by adding a construction analysis subcommittee. This committee will evaluate the challenges that students are facing with the LSC renovations, with construction in general across campus, address those concerns and those issues, and take action to minimize those concerns for students. We're also dedicated to working with our first-year students and ensuring that our first-year students have a successful transition by working with their resident assistants. I was a resident assistant for a year and a half, and I know the challenges faced there of finding the proper services to give to students. With all of these different areas being moved to the MAC gym, it's actually going to be better for first-year students to find all of the resources that they need in one location. I think we can minimize these challenges for the first-year students by inviting them in collaboration with these different offices to the MAC gym and making them feel like the MAC gym is the location that they can go to meet all of their needs and find all of their resources.
A lot of it has to do with, listening to students and what their concerns are. We were talked to on the plaza by a student saying, you would get my vote if you just ensure that we have a prayer room for the Muslim community during the LSC renovation. It's things like this, listening to the students, what they come to you with, the concerns that they have, and being open to, fighting to implement a way to accommodate them. It is going to be huge next year, and Wendy and I will be focused on that.
Thank you. All right, RamRide is currently undergoing a lot of changes. And so are you in favor or against RamRide moving out of ASCSU, and what are your specific plans for the program in the next year? And we'll start with Wendy.
So RamRide is a very complicated program, and since its inception 10 years ago, it's been growing and expanding at a very surprising rate. We've made a lot of great strides towards this program. The conversations about what happens with RamRide are still in very preliminary stages. And it's not to a point in which we're ruling anything out or taking a very strong stance on where we feel RamRide should go, because there are many parties involved in this. There's risk management involved in this, there's the administration involved in this, there's legal issues involved in this. We want to ensure that all of those discussions take place before we take any action. Now, what we're going to do this year is not only continue those conversations of where RamRide will go and where RamRide will end up, but also help to improve the program. We are dedicated to putting in a new dispatch system. We found the funding within our budget, which is detailed on our website, showing exactly how we will implement this dispatch system that will meet the needs of students and better improve the RamRide program. This program needs a more efficient dispatch system, and it's needed it for the last 3 years at least, because the capacity is greater than what we can currently handle. Implementing this new dispatch system will decrease the number of cars that we'll need on a road at a time, as well as decrease the number of wait times that students have. By decreasing these cars, we can focus more on our RamRide training and our RamRide volunteer culture. We want volunteers to come back multiple times, as many times as possible, and we want the training to be substantial and something that reduces the risk that's currently involved in RamRide now. And we're dedicated to making RamRide our #1 priority as we walk into office at the very beginning of this year, because the changes will occur at the very start of our administration, and through the summer will be when a lot of these decisions occur. And we are dedicated to making sure that the decision is the right one for the students, as well as that the students have a voice in what they want the RamRide program to go towards.
One of the most important issues facing the administration next year is RamRide and how successful the program is going to be. And it all has to do with the dedication of the next administration financially to the program. Wendy and myself have shown our dedication to RamRide and improving the program. From the very beginning of our campaign, we've been adamant saying that we are going to implement this new dispatch system. We have our eyes set on doing this, on improving the program and laying the foundation for administrations to come to be able to build on our work, build on the work that's already being done by this current administration.
Nigel.
Thank you. So, as you mentioned, RamRide is going to be facing a ton of different changes in this upcoming year, and it's going to be very challenging for both this administration and the incoming administration to work through those challenges to make sure that it's the best that it can be and that it sustains itself. And so I think in order for RamRide to grow, we really have to evaluate where the status of RamRide is currently and if it's capable of growing. And if moving it out of ASCSU will allow for us to give more attention to the program itself and allow us to move in an advisor or somebody who can oversee that and give some persuasion and some advice on how to implement the changes that need to be implemented for RamRide, that's what we need to do. But in addition to that, that's not going to solve the problem. Like I mentioned, RamRide is one of the most successful programs that ASCSU has, and we need to put a strong focus on our volunteers and the incentives that our volunteers are engaging in. And so this means that if we can create a community where people want to come and volunteer, that's what we need to do. We need to have people wanting to come and volunteer for RamRide. There should not be the case that we're out there searching for volunteers, but they should be coming to us thinking that this is an opportunity, and they should be taking advantage of this opportunity as it is so great, and you're giving directly back to your CSU Rams. And so we have a strong commitment to ensure that the dispatch system is implemented correctly. And so in order to do this, we have to work hand in hand with the administration that's currently been working at this problem and trying to hash out what we need to do to make sure that RamRide operates successfully in the future. And so rather than starting from zero, we'll work hand in hand with the current administration and SLICE and everybody else involved with the conversation, the RamRide Advisory Board, to make sure that we are advocating correctly for the students and we're giving more safe rides home at an efficient rate, and keeping those conversations going on how we can make it better for the students here at Colorado State University.
He's absolutely right on that one. I think that something that makes RamRide so great is the fact that it is student-run, that students are able to do something like that and give those safe rides home to other students while not being judgmental or anything of that sort. And for me, whether or not RamRide moves out of ASCSU or stays in ASCSU, we're still going to do everything that we can to make sure that RamRide will always be running and that RamRide is always going to be benefiting students, because if it benefits students, then we are going to absolutely advocate for it.
There's been a noticeable decrease in ASCSU presence at City Council meetings. How do you plan to become more involved, not only at the city level, but at the state capitol as well? And Nigel and Andrew, we can start.
I believe that's unfortunate that we have a decrease in representation at the city council level. That's very unfortunate. This is an opportunity and it's a privilege that students have fought for and that they've received. And we need to make sure that we're taking advantage of that opportunity. When people give you a right to come in and have a vote and have a voice and be heard, as a student, in regards to matters that consider yourself, then you must take advantage of that opportunity. I've had the opportunity to sit on boards all across campus and really see the ins and outs of having a vote and what that actually means for the student body. You represent the students, and we need to put an emphasis on holding that position accountable, and we have a community affairs director within our cabinet structure that will be present and will be held accountable to be present at every single city council meeting so that they are voicing those concerns to the student, keeping the conversation going about the U+2 rule, keeping those conversations going about how the CSU community can benefit the Fort Collins community and vice versa. And when I say CSU community, I'm not just talking about the students. We need to make sure we're focusing on all areas of this campus, as there's so much perspective, so much diversity in the experience. So we need to make sure administration is involved in that conversation, the faculty, the staff, and everybody's coming back and using this Fort Collins community for what it's worth.
And absolutely, it's a privilege to be able to even sit on the city council and have that vote. And also to go on that, I mean, making sure that we always have that strong relationship with the city and the Fort Collins community, because of course we want to promote community in all realms, not just the student, not just CSU, but also the Fort Collins community. And building those relationships will ultimately lead to benefits for the students, because relationships lead to collaboration, and collaboration leads to action. So action will always be better than intentions, and we want to make sure that we take that action and that those relationships lead to action that will benefit the students and benefit the community and benefit the overall experience at CSU and Fort Collins.
Wendy?
Absolutely. So I believe this year has been a challenge for our Community Affairs Department, and I believe it's because our Community Affairs Department is so stretched. There aren't a lot of individuals in that department to help with ensuring that we can make sure we have a presence there. We're moving our Community Affairs Coordinator, as we have made them now, underneath our Governmental Affairs Department. This way we have the support of the entire Governmental Affairs Department to have a strategic plan not only at the state, but also at the city. We don't want our community affairs to just be a subset of what we're doing. Governmental affairs addresses all of the different governments in which we talk to. The state, the federal government, the community, even the administration. The Governmental Affairs Department should be in those conversations and be a strong voice in those conversations. And there should be more collaboration to ensure that not only do we have one member there with great connections with the city council members, but we have assistants there, and we have other members of that department who are committed to ensuring that our relationship is very strong at the community and that voices can be heard. We're going to increase the amount of student voice surveys we have and how we collect student feedback on city issues. We believe these issues are very pertinent to the students as well as to the administration and the faculty, and we want to ensure that we have a very strong commitment to our connection with the city council and with how we govern and how they govern the different laws that affect students in our community. So we're going to really focus on putting an emphasis on this department and emphasizing the collaboration, that this isn't a one-person effort. This is an ASCSU effort for the students.
One of our most prominent platforms that you all might have seen on our signs around campus is an attempt to modify the U+2 law. We understand that this is an uphill battle, Wendy and I do. ASCSU has had a long history of working with the city council and trying to amend this law. What we're going to be focused on is having a strong presence at the city council and the city manager level. So this means we're going to be lobbying this effort at the city council. It's a fight that we feel is in the best interest of students. And it's something that we just cannot give up on. ASCSU needs to have this presence at the city council. We need to be fighting this fight and working to amend this law in a reasonable way. We know what we want to propose is more modest. It's a allowance of however many rooms are in a house, that many tenants can be there. The way we want to implement this is our presence at the city council.
All right, what is your most important platform and why? And along with that, how have you prioritized your other platforms? And Wendy, we'll start with you.
It's a challenging question because when we first get into office, there are two big areas that we'll be focused on, and those are our fiscal sustainability and RamRide. I've already talked about the RamRide program, so I'm going to talk a lot about our fiscal sustainability. So ASCSU for years has had a budget in which its expenditures were higher than its revenue. Our budget has finally fixed this and put us in a place where you should have a budget, where your revenues are less than your expenditures, greater than your expenditures, so that students have a more fiscal and stable budget that we can work off of. This budget is sustainable. It's sustainable not just for our administration, but for future administrations. And it's something that we needed to make the right commitments to certain areas. Our fiscal sustainability affects not only the ASCSU budget and the fact that we're not asking for a student fee increase, although we're adding a lot of great services, but also that we can create a sustainable ASCSU that future administrations can grow on, hopefully without having to ask for those increases, at least not asking for those increases for operational purposes. If there's an increase to ASCSU, it should be to invest in a program. And right now, at the way that our budget looks, it's more to invest in our operations. And we found ways to make responsible cuts to ensure that we do not have to ask for a student fee increase to manage our day-to-day operations or our normal contracts. We're also dedicated to fiscal sustainability across the university. I'm going to talk a lot about tuition, and then I'll pass it over to John to talk about the Student Fee Review Board. But we have a passion for ensuring that students are represented in these conversations. We want to start our annual tuition task force first thing. The first moment that the budget hits the ASCSU Senate, we will start the annual tuition task force. And by December, we will have a strong recommendation of student voice and student feedback to give to Tony Frank. We're hoping to work in collaboration with the administration to get these tuition increases to be lessened in some capacity. We know it's been a struggle for students. 20%, 9%, 9%. It's been very difficult for students to handle these tuition increases from year to year. And our administration has a passion for ensuring that student voice is heard and represented in the conversations of how their fees are spent, as well as how their tuition is calculated and how much more they have to contribute to this university during their time here.
I just want to quickly say that the most important issue to me in this upcoming year is our fiscal responsibility. It's the most important aspect of a person's job when they're dealing with other people's money. Wendy and I have a clear budget that expands the opportunity of funding for student organizations. It implements a new RamRide dispatch system. It does all of these things without raising the ASCSU student fee, and that is the most important issue to me. I guess I can talk briefly about my role as the chairman of the Student Fee Review Board. What I want to see implemented next year is a continuation of the policy that is in place right now on the Student Fee Review Board, which is having fee areas bring two budgets when they want to increase the student fee. What this does is allows members of the board to be able to see just why a student fee area wants to justify a fee increase. And it allows for board members to be able to think critically and criticize the budgets that they bring to ensure that the decisions that they make are in the best interest of students.
Thank you. In my personal opinion, I think the most important platform that Andrew and myself are running on is the emphasis on the campus liaisons. We need representation. I think it's obvious that we've all seen the ins and outs of different areas on campus, and we need to put a high emphasis on representation. We must get those voices heard, and we must start from the ground up. In order to make this happen, Andrew and myself plan to implement the campus liaisons and have representatives from all across the campus. And this means your diversity offices, your adult learners, SLICE, but not only that, athletics, your UCA, the arts. They all need to have a voice in these conversations that are going on campus. So as I mentioned earlier, the LSE is going under innovation. And this is going to pose many challenges, and I think we can all agree. But at the end of the day, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us all to unite as Rams and all come together as Rams, and we must take advantage of that opportunity. We must come together and have every department represented on a board, every department using each other so that we're not working for separate initiatives, but one common goal as CSU Rams. And so we're going to put a high emphasis at being present during this entire term and this entire year to make sure that we have the appropriate members in there and the appropriate members being heard. In terms of prioritizing our platform and what we're going to accomplish, we want to put a high emphasis on things that are going to benefit the students the best and the things that are going to benefit the students the most. And those are the things that we're going to put first, and those are the things that we're going to put a high emphasis on throughout our administration. I'll let Andrew talk a little bit about the interactive student fee as he knows what that can do for students.
Thank you. So, like Nigel said, I will talk about the interactive student fee. So, something that is very important that hits all students are student fees. Currently, students pay $886.82 student fees to 16 different fee areas around this campus. Those fee areas include athletics, the Rec Center, Hartshorn Health Center, Women Gender Advocacy Center, School of the Arts, University Facility Fee Advisory Board, University Technology Fee Advisory Board, and there's plenty more. I'm not going to name all of them off because that's just taking too much time. So student fees hit everybody, and we want to make sure that everybody knows exactly where their student fees are going, exactly where every single line in any budget that any fee area brings to us, we want to make sure they know exactly where that's going to go. So we plan on implementing what we call the interactive student feed, where we are going to put something on the ASCSU website. We're going to put a link there to a website where all the budgets are laid out in a very easily accessible and easily understandable way, so that students know exactly where their fees are going, whether it's to salaries of staff in a certain area, or whether it's to programming, whether it's to supplies, maintenance. We just want to make sure that there's that transparency and students know exactly where they're spending their money. Because there hasn't been a time in recent memory where I've been able to say I know exactly where every single dollar of my student fees are going, and I sit on the Student Fee Review Board. So we want to change that culture, absolutely. Because if people that are on that board that vote on those allocations of those fees don't know where every single dollar is going, then how can we make sure that an everyday student that isn't involved in student government or isn't involved in the Student Fee Review Board knows where those fees are going? So we just want to make sure that students know that we are going to be as fiscally responsible with their money, and that we're going to be as critical of the fee areas as we possibly can. Because in the end, the student fee areas work for us, we don't work for them.
Now I'd like to open it up to questions from the audience. So if you have questions, feel free to come up and you can form a line on either side.
Okay, so I think you both made it pretty clear that next year there's going to be two things that employ a lot of your attention, and that's what to do with RamRide and then the move from the LSC to the MAC gym. But I think that if those two things employ all of your attention, that not only will you become narrow-minded, but the organization as a whole will become narrow-minded, and the representation and the voice of the students will be lost. So how are you going to ensure that you focus on everything that you're saying you're going to focus on and not get lost or caught up in the two things that let's be honest, will take a lot of time and attention?
Wendy, we'll start with you.
Okay, great. I think you bring up a great point, and that's the conversation of how do we make sure that students' voice is heard and that our priorities stay as spread out as possible. What we have done, and I understand as president, there will be times in which your focus is pulled in a certain direction. When we first get into office, our budget and the RamRide program will be pulling our attention. But we have detailed out within our website all of our different departments and how those different departments are going to be responsible for different aspects of our platforms and initiatives. And we're delegating to those individuals to ensure that those different platforms and initiatives are accomplished, and we can have the oversight over those departments to ensure that they're accomplished. We've also created in our budget and in our department structure a public relations department. This department will be focused on public relations, outreach, and recruitment, as well as marketing. All of it will be focused into one department. Instead of one individual being in charge of making sure that the entire campus knows exactly what ASCSU is doing, we're going to ensure that there's this entire department that is focused to the outreach and communication of students. We want to implement new programs of how we better get student voice. One of our initiatives is to have a service available for students for them to text in their thoughts on certain issues. We're going to hopefully work with the campus media to put something within the Collegian on a weekly basis that has a question and a QR code, like, what do you think of the ASCSU student fee? Allow the students to immediately comment using a text-in option and get their direct feedback and results instead of having to wait through the student survey process. We want to make sure that students still feel our presence. And that's one of our big initiatives with the RamRide office being open during the renovations, is we want students to still know that we're there and that we're listening to them and their needs. That is a very big initiative of ours and something that we're very passionate about. We want to make sure that students don't feel disconnected from ASCSU, especially during the renovations, that students still feel like they're a part of it, as well as that students are knowing what ASCSU is doing and we're being held accountable for our actions, and making sure that all of our initiatives are accomplished and our priorities can be delegated properly.
Yeah, I just wanted to, Wendy said something that I absolutely agree with, and it's about delegating responsibilities. What we hope to do is have a strong cabinet structure with strong department heads that we can delegate the responsibilities of those departments to them. I know that myself as VP, I need to have a pretty narrow and focused goal and obligation. As the chair of the SFRB and chair of the Senate, my focus is going to be on transparency and outreach of those two bodies. That's where I'm going to put most of my energy, put most of my time. What we need to be able to do is have the cabinet structure that we can delegate the other responsibilities to strong department heads.
Delegation is key. We're going and we have implemented a plan to ensure that every one of our platforms can be accomplished through delegation within our cabinet. We've given and altered the job descriptions of the entire cabinet that currently stands and made sure that we can charge people with the responsibility of accomplishing everything that we've said that we would promise the students on a timely manner, on the timeline, effectively and efficiently. But in addition to that, I think you bring up a good point. I think what we really need to focus on here is bridging that gap. We have to bridge that gap. And in order for us to do that, we're going to have to delegate the services that can be, the promises and initiatives that can be accomplished by those departments so that Andrew and myself can start working at evaluating what ASCSU currently is doing. Looking for that next big growth, that next big movement for ASCSU, the next thing that serves the students, the next thing that leaves a legacy. And that's what we're really searching for here. And so in order for that to happen, we have to put an emphasis on the outreach. We have to make sure that the people who are coming into these positions are people who are qualified, people who have a drive, and people who want to do the positions that they're being hired to do. And then after they're hired, we want to make sure that they're carrying out those positions to the best of their ability so that Andrew and I can focus on where we want to take ASCSU for the students and what we want to do for the students at Colorado State University.
And absolutely, delegation is very important, but another thing that's very important is accountability. And ultimately, the students hold the student government accountable. So it's going to those student orgs, talking to them, saying, are we fulfilling our jobs to the best of our ability? Are we doing the things that benefit you most? If they say no, then we're not doing our jobs. So it's really going to the students, not having them come to us, because in the end, we're serving them. So we're going to take time out of our schedule to go to those student orgs and not just have presence. Talk with them. Ask them, even just shoot the breeze with them. How was your day? Having that strong community, having that strong relationship built with them, because in strong relationships, there's transparency, there's invisibility. It's strong relationships, you share everything with your best friend. We want to make sure that we have that strong relationship with the entire student community, and that they could tell us anything.
I'm kind of short. My question is, what makes you specifically qualified for this job? Like, what have you had previously experience-wise that makes you know how to do this in the future?
We'll start with you.
Thank you for asking that. My experience and my background as a Daniel Scholar has been extravagant here at CSU, and I've been able to explore the different paths of different students. I understand what it's like to walk the path of an art student, to walk the path of a student that's involved with environmental issues, and then focus on different areas on campus that you wouldn't normally focus on, such as myself. And so in addition to that, I've also had the opportunity to take leadership across campus through those involvement opportunities. I'm currently the president of the Pre-Law Club, and I've been able to work with a tremendous, awesome group of students to move that club into a direction of growth where we can make something happen here at CSU for pre-law students. And then I work at the Environmental Learning Center. And here I'm the environmental educator, and I've been able to really focus my attention on educating students and have that facilitation of a discussion and lead a group into a different direction. My ASCSU history and background dates back to spring of 2012, where I originally joined in the executive branch as an assistant director of diversity. This has been awesome. I've been able to see what the cabinet works and how they operate and the ins and outs of the structure itself. And then I moved over to the judicial branch as associate justice. This has been one of the most pleasurable positions that I've held within ASCSU, as I've been able to interpret the Constitution, understand what the students wrote and why they wrote it, and then also be able to interpret that and give it back to the students in a way. Most recently, I switched over to the legislative branch as a senator, and I was appointed by the Dean's College Council, and I've been able to really take up leadership and meet with my constituents, understand what the needs are of students across campus, and how I can use those needs to facilitate a discussion on how we can make it better, how we can increase the student experience here, and also make academics better. And so we want to put an emphasis on all those areas, and I think my background and my experience with different areas on campus will allow me to do so.
So I have had 2 years of experience with an ASCSU now, all of them in the legislative branch, which is the branch that the vice president oversees. My experience started out as a senator for intra-university or undeclared students. I was a senator for all of about a month, and then I was elected as the Speaker Pro Tem of the Senate. So the Speaker Pro Tem of the Senate is versed in parliamentary procedure and is used as a resource for senators to write legislation, and also presides over the Senate in the absence of the Vice President. So I have had that experience, and I have had the privilege of being taught by some of the greatest people. I know that he's not here anymore, or he graduated. That sounded really bad. Okay, but I'll put a plug in for Mr. Andy Shank, who was our 8-year veteran, and I had the privilege of working with him and having him impart his knowledge onto me, and it was quite an experience. It was just great. And I've also had 2 years of experience on the Student Fee Review Board, or also referred to as SFRB. And having that experience on the Student Fee Review Board has taught me, what it takes to keep those relationships with those fee areas great, while being extremely critical and extremely cost effective. So we're making sure that students get the most bang for their buck. Also, I wanted to make sure that, of course, that my involvement wasn't lopsided and strictly in ASCSU. I've made sure that I've been on the Dean's Leadership Council for Applied Human Sciences, the Undeclared Leadership Council for Intra-University, the University Facility Fee Advisory Board, the University Technology Fee Advisory Board, and also things like Habitat for Humanity, when I get the chance, of course, down in Denver. Also, I sing in the men's choir. I thought I'd just throw that in because we're having a choir concert soon, so you should go to that. I just wanted to make sure that my involvement is well-rounded, so that, anything and everything I can, make sure that I have the most universal, view on everything, so that I'm not ruling out any certain viewpoints that are important or that aren't represented. And I just wanted to make sure that I can cover as many areas as I can, so I can adequately represent the students from all those areas and make sure that they're heard. Make sure that they're getting, their word in there. Make sure that their opinions are being voiced on any and every board that it matters on, of course. And in the end, it's very important that involvement is well-rounded.
Right, great. That's a fantastic question. I really appreciate it. I have served in ASCSU for the last 3 years, all of them in the executive branch. I started out as the executive assistant as a first-year student, moved to the deputy director of university affairs position, and then have served as the director of finance for 1.5 years now, which has given me a lot of experience with the ASCSU budget and the ins and outs of all of our contractual obligations and agreements. I've also served for the last 3 years on the Student Fee Review Board and served as the vice chair of that board last year. And I've had a lot of experience ins and outs of the fees and the fee process throughout the university. I've also gotten the privilege of serving for the last 2 years on the tuition task force, which has been able to show me how the tuition conversations go, where the challenges lie, and how we better that relationship with the administration to actually tackle the conversations of tuition. But my experience is not just solely within ASCSU. I've had experience for the last 2.5 years now on the Dean Student Leadership Council for the College of Business, and I've gotten to see how the College of Business functions within its own governing and how we can make a better impact within specific colleges, which has helped me with a well-rounded experience across the university for how colleges need our personal support and how academics need our support. I've also served on a lot of subcommittees across the university, the academic subcommittee, the faculty council subcommittee, as well as the financial subcommittee at the university. And I've been able to see those different committees and how they function, how they operate, and the ways that we need to do things. I have the network and connection of individuals that I've worked with in my time here to ensure that all of our platforms and initiatives are feasible and sustainable and have had the conversations about implementing them. We've already started the process. We're not hitting the ground starting here on June 1st completely out of ground zero. We've actually started all of these conversations. We've had a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge in where we're going to go, and we're going to hit at a starting point that's a lot greater than those administrations that have come before us. I've also had the privilege serving 3 years in this organization to see the successes and failures of previous administrations, how one administration really succeeds in one area but has some challenges in other areas. And I think I've had that experience to be able to know what I'm getting myself into. I'm not delusional about how much work this is going to be and how much effort it's going to be to make sure that the students are heard and represented on how these issues are complex and are going to need more time and dedication to them. And I'm ready to serve you all as student body president.
So my experience comes from being a member of the two boards that I seek to chair. Something that Andrew and I probably differ is that I've spent this year from the perspective of a member of Senate. So I've seen the effectiveness and what needs improvement in Senate from the perspective of being a member of the board. So I've seen that what needs to increase in Senate is transparency and outreach. These are two things that I'm going to hit on all night. Transparency comes from letting the students know what Senate is up to on a weekly basis. So if I'm elected chair, I will ensure that our legislation, the things that we're doing on a weekly basis, are on our ASCSU website so that students can have easy access to what is going on, what we're deciding, how we're deciding, and how it impacts students. As a member of SFRB, I've seen the effectiveness of the two-budget system. I've talked about this before, but the two-budget system is crucial for members of the board to be able to critically analyze fee areas in their budgets. And if I'm vice president, I hope to re-implement that policy.
All right, good evening, candidates. My name is Quan. I have a question. It kind of stemmed from Nigel and Andrew's platform of the liaisons, which I really thought that was an interesting idea. And also, you talked about outreach. I would like to see ASCSU move toward being more of a voice, but also a place for a conversation. You know what I mean? You know, what's happening on the campus? What's happening in ASU? What is ASU saying to the campus? You know, and who's reporting back? So can you go more into detail what the liaison looks like, and also you guys can talk about outreach and stuff like that and what that looks like going into next year?
Thank you for asking that, Quan. So the campus liaisons, the full intention behind this is to get students involved and get students engaged with what's going on here at campus. ASCSU currently holds a voice in many different areas that regard tuition, that regard your student fee, that regard resources for students. And what we want to be able to do is unite the campus. I think there's a clear gap that's established between your student body and the student body government. And we need to be able to bridge that gap so that ASCSU is a place where it is a community, where students want to come and engage. And so what we have done is we put a focus on the student org promotion. And we really want to put opportunities out there for student orgs to get involved. And this can be accomplished through your campus liaisons. these people are going back into those communities. They're going back into the art community, back into the athletic community, and relaying the messages from other departments across campus and figuring out how we can use each other so that we're not working separately, but we're working together so that we can work for one united goal and be one CSU RAM. And so that's really what the Campus Liaison's intent is.
Response?
Great. I think you bring up a good point, that it is a conversation. It's a conversation about various issues that students are concerned about and how they get educated on that conversation. We want to not only invite their voice to be heard and make them feel like they can be a part of conversations, but also know what the conversations are about, know where the administration's coming from, know where we're coming from, and know what steps have already been taken for students to have their input and have their voice heard. Not only will we continue having student voice surveys available to students, as well as the text-in option and the PR department, we have more initiatives that are based solely around outreach and communication to students so that students can engage in those conversations. One of those initiatives is by having monthly presidential forums. These will be either out on the plaza or in an area that's accessible to students, where students can come in and talk directly to us and feel very comfortable talking to us about certain issues. If we're not on track with a platform, it's a great place to keep us accountable. Or if there is a big conversation that's occurring at the university, it's a great place to have feedback and input put there. I want students to feel like they have a true connection with the president and vice president of their university and know that those individuals are representing what their voice is. We will also be working to make sure we have quarterly accountability reports available to students. Not just an end-of-the-year report from the president to say what's been going on over that course of that year for the next administration to succeed, but for students to know exactly where we are, what we've accomplished, what each department has accomplished, as well as where they're still going, where they still are working, and where they still need and invite more student input. We're going to make accessing us very easy using text-in options and making sure that students know the emails they can reach us at. We want to make sure that your voice is our cause. And we're going to implement different initiatives, including a multicultural council of individuals who will evaluate the diversity on the campus and be able to tell us where there are problems with the current diversity conversations on the campus, where things like a prayer room come up that we don't think about on a daily basis and can be addressed to us and brought entirely to our attention so we can start taking the proper steps to ensuring that action is taken towards whatever you are passionate about. We're going to be very accessible, and that's something that we are very passionate about.
Yeah, outreach is an absolutely crucial component of SFRB, especially in the era where the fee package doesn't go in front of the Senate. So as Vice President, as the chair of SFRB, I'm going to be committed to setting the culture that board members outreach to as many students as they can before they make their weekly decision on fee increases. So this means getting the most diverse and wide scope of feedback before you cast your vote, before you say that you can legitimately raise somebody's student fee. And outreach is a huge part of that.
Great. Do we have
Thank you.
So my question is dealing with the fact that one of the most important relationships on campus that ASCSU deals with is the college councils. And so I was wondering, how is it that your administration plans to foster those relationships with various college councils?
Yeah, so one of our main platforms for next year is re-implementing the College Council roundtables. So what we want to do is invite the leadership of college councils to get together with leadership of ASCSU and really have a collaborative effort to see what needs to happen around campus across disciplines. This program was tried before, and there were a couple of snags. The old culture was sort of ASCSU dangles money over the college councils in an effort to get them to fill their Senate seats. And that's not the kind of relationship we're trying to have with college councils. We want to make it a good faith effort of ASCSU reaching out to college councils to build a beneficial and meaningful relationship.
We're also implementing another initiative, which is called College Council Funding Boards. So something I've noticed as the chair of the Board for Student Organization Funding for the last year and a half is a lot of college-specific organizations coming to us and saying, we'd like a networking event. We would like a dinner for a specific concentration within a college, or a way that different majors within a college can get together and conversate. We don't currently have the ability to fund that through the Board for Student Organization Funding. So we've created the concept of the College Council Funding Boards. This is a sum of money that each college council will receive from ASCSU that they can turn around and fund college-specific events to help better their college community and to be that central voice for their college. We believe the different organizations within the college have to also feel like they're part of that college council, for that college council to be the voice of that college. And we think that relationship starts here, where that board can help those organizations better put on different events throughout the college and to expand their college and their capabilities there.
Yeah, and this sum of money it's in good faith. You know, we give it to them, and it's not we have strings attached. It's not you can only get this money if you fill your college, your Senate seats. We really want to reach out and have a meaningful relationship with college councils.
Having the privilege of being able to attend a majority of those college councils has really shown me the importance of building a strong relationship with any college council, because they're the representative bodies within the colleges, and they represent all those voices within those colleges. So to foster those relations, I think that two of the most important things are support and promotion. We want to give those college councils support in any capacity, whether it be support through having a presence at their events, or support whether it be funding, or support whether it's giving them resources to market their events so that they can reach the largest audiences and have that presence at their events that gives them everything. And also, promotion is big, and we want to make sure that we're marketing all those events to large populations, because we want to make sure that college councils know that we're there for them and that we want to be involved in what they're doing, because we know what they're doing is important and it's admirable, and we want to make sure that that they get the most promotion and that they have everything that they need to make sure that their college council is successful in what they do.
And in addition to that, I think the relationship between ASCSU and college councils is very unique. And I think college councils across the university have variation within them. In order for this to be successful, in order for roundtable discussions to be successful, in order for the representation on the college councils to be successful, we have to start with involvement. I keep coming back to this because that's where it always comes back to. We have to promote these opportunities to the students so that we're getting those perspectives on these college councils, so that they have the dean support there and they have that conversation going about what that college council can do specifically for that college. Now, with that, we have to work to collaborate with all of the different college councils because there is so much variation. No two college councils work the same, and no two are alike. And so, being that that relationship is a direct funnel into Senate, we have to make sure that we have an understanding all across the board with every college council on how we're getting senators in there, how we are training senators, and how we're getting them efficient and proficient at their job.
We have time for 2 more questions. Sorry. So we'll take the next one from this side.
Okay, cool. So thank you for taking my question, and thank you to everybody who made this possible. This is pretty cool. So my question is, when I was out on the plaza today, I asked a few just random students that walked by what their image about the government was, about ASCSU, and I have some quotes. So on the Senate, quote, "It's a bunch of kids sitting around playing politics and pretending to actually do anything." On the executive, "It's a bunch of elitist kids sitting in an office and handing out and working and using my student fees." So coming from Senate, there's some days where that kind of seemed true. So what are you guys going to do, both of your teams going to do, to change the culture both in the student and in Senate itself, like their image and their culture?
Thank you for asking that. I think that's unfortunate. I think that that's unfortunate that the students are viewing their student government, who have so much say in their experience here, that way. That needs to change. In order for that to change, we have to take a culture shift. ASCSU as a whole has to take a shift. We have to start focusing and putting an emphasis on the outside experience of students. That means we need to have an open door. Students should be able to come into that office, have a community, engage with different people, and get the resources that they need to be successful here at CSU. So, we plan to be present. Being that the LSC is going to be under renovation, the disconnect is going to be stronger. The gap is going to be bigger. So we're going to be present. We're going to be there from beginning to the end at all areas of campus, putting an emphasis on ASCSU and how students can get involved, even if it is just submitting their comments and their views on how we can do better, because that is important. We represent them and they are our constituents, so we need to cater to them. And so we plan to have student forums. We plan to do the student surveys to get perspective. We plan to be present at the Greek life events and the philanthropy events. We plan to have a presence at art events. But we also want to work in collaboration with every other department here on campus so that we can work for the success of the students.
And definitely that quote about Senate is, gosh, that was harsh. But education, I think, is going to be very big in the Senate, is getting those incoming senators and educating on exactly what they can do for their constituents, that they need to represent those constituents in every matter, no matter what the matter is, that representation is always there, and educating them that they can do a lot more than they think they can. I mean, administration, the community, takes into account the opinion of the students a lot more than students think that they do. It's educating those senators that they can take stances on those heavy-hitting issues, and that those stances will be taken into account by administration, taken into account by the Fort Collins community. And it's just educating and making sure that they know that they can make a big difference.
So I personally don't think that this is a matter of changing the student perspective. I think it starts internally. I think we need to change the way that ASCSU functions, the way ASCSU operates, how it's efficient and accountable towards students. Next year is a turning point for ASCSU. We're moving into the MAC Gym with a lot of other areas. It's a great year for collaboration, a great year for stronger relationships there and stronger collaboration on how we outreach to students. If anything, I think next year might be one of our strongest years for outreach and communication, or at least it has the potential to be. Now, we need to make sure that we're being efficient. We need to have a financially sustainable organization. We need to ensure that our budget is something that can be sustained for future years, that we're not agreeing to contracts that we don't know how we're going to fund, that we make sure that all the conversations have student voice and student involvement in them, and that the ASCSU executive branch runs efficiently and runs smoothly and is very transparent to the students so they know if there are flaws, where those flaws occur, and how they can get involved in those areas and let us know what their voice is and how we can make sure that their voice is our cause. I do think that there are places that ASCSU can absolutely improve in, and things that our administration will work to change the culture of ASCSU and lay the foundation for the next decade of administrations. This is the year for the change.
I think that ultimately the attitude of students towards Senate can and will improve with increased transparency. It's sort of Senate and the inner workings of Senate, it's sort of an ebb and flow. There are certain times when we go till midnight, we have a full docket of very important issues in front of us, like concealed carry and ASCSU fee. And then other days, there are less bills. So what I intend to do as vice president is try to ensure that as many students as possible know just what on a weekly basis we're doing and how we're deciding and how it impacts students. But again, you can't force a senator to write a bill. You can't force a senator to want to be a good senator. That just comes from hopefully the people that join Senate are the committed individuals that want to improve campus. That's what being a senator, to me at least, means. It means trying to find areas around campus that we can improve. And as a non-biased chair, you can't force people to vote a certain way, to act a certain way. But what you can do is lead. You can lead by example. So the people in Senate who take on roles of responsibility, like Andrew, like myself, like the other committee chairs, like some of just the more vocal senators, hopefully they will just rub off on the other senators and try to breed an attitude of we're here for a purpose. We're here to actually improve campus, improve students' lives.
And we'll have our final question.
With my last question, I would like to ask, well, essentially both of your campaigns like to emphasize RamRide, and you emphasize that both of you emphasize that it needs to remain a student-run organization, and an important part of that is the volunteers of RamRide. So how are you going to work to change the culture and create a more consistent base and happier base of volunteers within RamRide?
Wendy, you can start.
Yeah, that's a great question. The cultural change is going to take time. As much as we'd like it to happen overnight, it's going to take time. Right now, there are challenges within the volunteer culture. There are people volunteering once a semester just to check it off their list. That's not the culture we want in RamRide. We want it to be students serving students, and the students we want behind the wheel, we want students to feel comfortable are the right students to drive them home and know that RamRide is being responsible and know that RamRide is minimizing the risks. And that starts with our volunteers. The way that we're planning on changing this culture is at first through collaboration with very intelligent individuals who are committed to volunteer culture and understanding volunteer culture. But we also believe it comes down to training. We'd like to eventually, hopefully soon, implement a system in which we can have a larger training that anyone who wants to volunteer for RamRide has to go through. And this way it creates more of a commitment to the program. You're not just showing up for 30 minutes before you get behind a wheel. You show up, you do a 3-hour training session where you learn the ins and outs of RamRide, you know the culture behind RamRide, you know why RamRide's there and the importance of RamRide, and hopefully that'll instill the want to continue on. How we're gonna get those proper students behind the wheel is by changing the culture. We're gonna start with this dedicated student organizations who already volunteer for us a lot throughout the year. And we're gonna reach out to them to say, what makes you wanna come back to RamRide? What makes you want to serve the students in this capacity? And how do we create that culture for other students? We may use incentive programs to try to start it, to get it off the bat, but I want it to turn into something that's not based on 5 times to get a t-shirt. I want it to be based on, I want to be here tonight because I love this program, because I love what it does for CSU, because I know that one night I'm going to need this program and I'm glad it's there, and I want to put my contribution towards it. That's the culture we need to change when we get into RamRide. And I think we have the ability and the network and the connections to start this shift in the culture during our administration and ensure that students feel that this is a safe, non-judgmental student ride home.
I think that ultimately the success or failure of RamRide as a student-based, student volunteer organization is going to be shown through whether or not we can put a damper on some of the unsafe practices. And I think that the current administration has done incredible work, strides towards doing this. And ultimately, next year, what it's going to take is a very committed administration to improving the program and implementing the changes that need to happen. Wendy and myself have shown that we are committed to RamRide. That's something that we care deeply about. We've put aside a considerable amount of our budget to focus on RamRide, to focus on the changes that need to happen and the improvements that need to be made in an effort of confidence in what the current administration is doing and what, the direction that we want to take the program for years to come.
RamRide is an important program for students, and we have to ensure that it remains here at ASCSU and remains here at CSU for students. I think you raise a good point about the volunteers, and I think we have to step back and take a look at what RamRide is, the true mission behind RamRide. This is a program that was created for students to serve students and give students rides home safely. This is a mission built around service and a community, and it's going to have to start with the community. And so we plan to work hand in hand with the current administration to improve those incentive programs that are already in state. We want to make those better. But that is not the only answer. We have to have someone else working to figure out what we're going to do for long term of RamRide and how we're going to take RamRide to the next level. And so in order to do that, we have to figure out what do volunteers want and what brings volunteers back. There's institutions across this country that have Safe Ride programs, and they have multiple volunteers that come back and utilize that service and volunteer for that service. And it's not like they need incentives. It's not that they need people pulling their arm to come. They want to come. There's programs out there where they pay to give students rides home. That's incredible. We need to bring that same type of community back here to Fort Collins. As we are one of the best Safe Ride programs out there, we need to make sure that we're representing ourselves as the best student-run Safe Ride program out there. And so no more being number 2, we're going to number 1. But we want to make sure that we're putting a high emphasis on that effective training these students and training our volunteers so that this is a community where they want to come back and repetitively come back. So they have to have a voice. They have to be heard early on in these stages and in these conversations about what we're going to do next year, where the next step is for RamRide. They have to be engaged. They have to voice what works and what doesn't in order for us to have a clear view and a clear plan of how we're going to make it work in the future. And so with all of that, we plan to work hand in hand, like I just said, and make sure that those perspectives are heard and that these students are warranted, and we make RamRide the best that we can make RamRide.
And just a little thing to add on to that, that was very good. And I think that education is also very important because students know that you always need a safe ride home and that you shouldn't drink and drive, and that those people that volunteer for RamRide understand that they could be saving a life. And it's really that knowing that you're saving a life is really the drive behind volunteering, and knowing that you're benefiting your fellow students and promoting that community and making sure that students know that you're there to make sure that they're safe, to make sure that they're getting home in one piece, of course, and making sure that students are always safe and that students are the first priority. And it's always important that students support each other to promote that community, to make sure each other is safe, to make sure that they're picking each other up when they fall. And in the end, students are always going to have that strong community and always are going to have that close relationship. And I think that RamRide is always promoting that relationship, and RamRide is very important. And we would just want to make sure that it stays around so that community is always there, and that those students can always pick each other up when they fall.
We'll now allow all of the candidates to give a 1-minute closing statement. So Nigel, you can start. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can we?
Oh, actually, we'll have to hold all questions until after. I'm sorry, but
Sure.
We'll just allow them to give
a
a
1-minute thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you all for coming out again. I appreciate this, and I think all of us in this room appreciate you being here and taking time out of your schedule to really engage in your student government and have a voice in this upcoming year. Coming forth, we're going to have a lot of challenges, and I think that's obvious, and I'm sure all of you took that away from this debate. But, I really want to put an emphasis on just the significance in this election. I want to encourage every person in this room, if you have not, to get involved. Find out what we're doing. Find out what both tickets are doing. No matter what, we're both working for the success of students. We're both working to make sure that the students are represented and the students are taken care of and they have the best experience they can have here at CSU. And so I highly encourage you to get involved. We'll be out on the plaza all week. We'll be out there half of next week, and voting is going to be April 8th through the 10th. And this is your time to get engaged and be part of that process of breaking those barriers, creating a community so that when we come back into the Lory Student Center, we're not only coming back with a new ASCSU, but we're coming back with a new student experience that's beyond whatever has existed.
Thank you so much. Wendy?
I think Nigel brings up some great points, that this is 2 dedicated campaigns towards the success of the ASCSU and the student body in general. And I'd like to encourage everyone to definitely get educated and to come out and vote on April 8th, 9th, and 10th on RamWeb. With that, next year is a turning point for ASCSU. It's a year of change. We're moving out of the LSC into the MAC gym. There's opportunities for greater collaboration. There's opportunities for great success. There's also chances for really terrible things to occur. And we're going to make sure that not only do we have a strong presence during the renovation, but that once we move back into the LSC, that we're a stronger ASCSU than we ever were before, that our connection with students is stronger than it ever was before, that the sustainability of ASCSU financially and its programs is addressed, that we've laid the right foundation, not just for this year to thrive, but for every year after that to be successful. We're dedicated to making sure that your voice is our cause and that your voice is represented in all of these different conversations and discussions. And we would invite you to come out and talk to us on the plaza if you get a chance in the next week, as well as visit our website, votewendyandjohn.com.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for coming, and if you have any other further questions, you can come and ask the candidates afterwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was